Hello everybody. In our past two activities, we have learned about wind and water, two forces that affect rocks by breaking them down into smaller pieces and moving that dirt to a new location in a process called erosion. What happens to all that sediment, that dirt and sand, after it has been moved by wind or water? Eventually, dirt and sand that is moved by water settles, that is, it stops moving, along slow-moving creek and river bottoms and in lakes or ponds. Dirt and sand that has been moved by wind will settle on the ground when the wind stops. It might get picked up again by more wind, but when sediment is deposited, it settles, and then buried by other sediment and doesn't move for a very long time, millions of years, the sediment can stick together and create a rock. We call rocks that form this way sedimentary rocks. Today, we're going to model the formation of a sedimentary rock. Creating a model means making something that represents something else, such as a process found in nature. Our model is much smaller than how the cliffs in southern Utah formed, and we can't wait a million years for the sediment to be compressed into rock. But the model helps us see how the process of sedimentary rock formation happens. First, make sure you have all the materials that you need from your take-home kit. You should have 3 to 5 small bags of craft sand, a small funnel, 1 plastic sand art container, and for a little bit later, a magnifying glass. You can take it out of the package if it's still in the package. Okay, so let's dive into our procedures. First, you need to find a nice flat spot to set up the plastic container. If your container is round like mine, it's going to roll over right when you set it down. So I'm going to have to figure out a solution to make sure it doesn't tip over. What solutions can you think of? One solution might be to have a friend, sibling, or parent hold your container as you pour the sand. The solution I found is to put my container between 2 books so that it doesn't roll away. First, you're going to remove the cap of your container. There's a little plastic thing in here too. You want to remove that. But don't lose track of it. So we'll just set that to the side. You're going to set the narrowest part of your filter right into the opening of your container. The funnel will help you pour sand into the container more easily. Choose one color of your sand and pour just enough sand to cover the bottom of your container. Depending on the shape of your container, it may take a very small amount or it may take a little bit more. In this model, the container represents something that might contain settled sediment, perhaps a valley or canyon or a lake or pond. While we are pouring our sand into the container, it represents sediment that might be blown into that space by the wind or brought by a river. Next, choose another color to pour in on top of your first layer. Then you'll choose either a third color or you can go back to the first color. Pour in another layer. And pour in another layer. So it doesn't really matter whether you're alternating colors, going blue, orange, or if you're using many different colors, so long as you're always pouring a different color than the one that's on top, because we want to be able to see the variation. Add some yellow. As you're going, you can add thick layers, or you can keep all your layers pretty thin. It's up to you. And you may find that your sand hits up against that funnel, so you may want to have someone help as you continue to fill, but move the funnel just a little bit higher. Can help to kind of tap your container to encourage the sand to settle. When you're finished, you can kind of tap the sand down and pull the funnel out. Next, we're going to take the cap that we took off earlier. We'll stick that little plastic or wax piece into the hole and screw on the cap. Take a moment to examine your sedimentary rock model. You can use your magnifying glass to examine some of the layers up close. Is each layer clear from the others, or is it hard to see the difference? When rocks are forming, Layers are sometimes very clear if the different sediments have a very different color or grain size. But sometimes it can be hard to see the difference between each layer because the sediment looks a lot alike. If there's extra space in the container, you will see that the layers can shift and mix with each other. These effects on the layers can happen in real life too. You've now modeled how a sedimentary rock is formed. Because the container holds the sand in place, it's almost like having a sedimentary rock in your hand. Does this container of sand look like any rocks you've seen? You can look at the pictures of sedimentary rock that are included in the packet for this week to compare. Of course, the colors of sand for our activity are colors that we don't find in sediment outside. But aside from color, what similarities and differences do you see? Keep your eyes peeled for sedimentary rocks out in the world this week. We'll see you next week to explore what kinds of plants and animals can be found inside these rocks.